e facciamolo. Addio Lugano bella, o dolce terra pia, scacciati senza colpa, gli anarchici van via e partono cantando con la speranza in cuore.
Hey. Slow down. What's going on? Yeah, of course you can come by. I'll be waiting for you. Tell me everything when you're here, okay? Try to stay safe until then. Oh shit. You're soaked. Come in. What were you doing out this late at night? You met up with some comrades? And then what? Wait a moment. Let me have a look at your face. Hey, don't try to hide it from me. Dude, is that blood? Oh shit. Come here. Shut up. I don't want to hear a word about you being alright. Clearly, you're not. Here, sit on this chair. I'll go grab some stuff so we can clean it up. Okay? Don't move. There we go. Let me have a closer look. It looks really painful. Does it hurt? I can imagine. It doesn't look like you need stitching, luckily. I have some tape that can close it, but I'll have to get rid of the dirt and the blood first. I don't want you to get an infection. I'll wipe it carefully with this cotton ball. Tell me if it hurts, okay? So, would you want to tell me what happened? Those bastards followed you guys off to the meeting. And then they threw glass bottles at you. Oh, that's terrifying. Did the other comrades manage to get to safety? Oh God. I'm so relieved you guys managed to chase them away. And that you were a group too. If you were alone, I don't even want to think about how it would have ended. The guy who ran towards you with a glass bottle. Oh boy, you don't even want to know what I would do to him. They're fucking cowards. They deserve getting a real good beating. But dude, you really have to carry something around for protection. Those people have killed before. And where this world is heading currently is just going to get worse. At a time like this, building a bigger community with comrades is very important. Yeah. Looks like it's all clean now. You won't enjoy this part, but I have to swab the area with alcohol. Oh, fuck indeed. I came prepared. Say hello to your new friend, the wooden sleeve. You have to bite down on this. Are you ready? Here we go. It's soon over. Just a little bit more. There, all done. I'm quite sure it will heal up nicely if we just tape it. I guess for that you'll have to bite down again, just in case. Here. Okay. Now you're done. Since you had a rough day, I'll make sure you'll be comfortable until you fall asleep. I'll make the bed for you. But, I'll sleep on the floor. I don't mind. Shh, don't argue. Listen, this is my house, my room, my bed, and you are my guest. So be a good guest and follow my rules. Rule number 1, you sleep on the bed. Rule number 2, no complaining. Rule number 3, listen to what I say. You're only going to like it from here, trust me. Now come here. Let's not waste this sweet night. I changed the sheets so you can get changed and... Alright, you don't have anything with you. That's okay. You can borrow my clothes. Here. You ready? I have a surprise for you. Open wide and show me your tooth first. Come on. You don't have to lift a finger. I'd love to be spoiled like this. There we go. Does it feel good? I'm making sure not to miss any of your toothsies. I'm making sure to gently eat your gums. Now that's making mine itch for brushing too. Here, spit in this cup. Just gonna brush a bit here and here. And behind. There we go. Does it feel nice and smooth? Let me just wipe your mouth. It's best if you try to get some sleep now. Your body needs plenty of rest for that wound to heal properly. Is there something wrong? Do you want me to stay here until you fall asleep? Don't worry. I can do that. Hey, you know, I haven't read much about anarchism, but there's one thing I found out that I thought was really funny. Have you heard of Marx and Bakunin insulting each other in letters? Oh boy, let me read it to you. It's so funny. Okay. Bakunin has become a monster. A huge mass of flesh and fat, and is barely capable of walking anymore. There's more, but this is the funny part. It was in a letter to Engels in 1863. That reminds me. There's a work by Kropotkins I wanted to read for a while. Since I found out he had studied human evolution, it made me want to read it. Have you read it before? Oh, he had found out humans evolved faster through helping each other. You know, the opposite of Darwin, kind of. But it was disregarded until much later, when scientists were finding the same things. It breaks my heart to hear revolutionaries' works being swept under the mat. And you know that they're not being recognized as scientists just because they're not liberal. I guess we have the opportunity now to give him the respect he deserves by taking part of his knowledge. Am I right? While I'm reading this, feel free to fall asleep whenever you want. Okay? I'll be here. I'll start reading in the middle because I found a really interesting part here. Okay, this is from chapter 1. As soon as we study animals, not in laboratories and museums only, but in the forest and the prairie, in the steppe and the mountains, we at once perceive that though there is an immense amount of warfare and extermination going on amidst various species, and especially amidst various classes of animals, there is at the same time as much, or perhaps even more, of mutual support, mutual aid, and mutual defense amidst animals belonging to the same species, or at least to the same society. Sociability is as much a law of nature as mutual struggle. Of course, it would be extremely difficult to estimate, however roughly, the relative numerical importance of both these series of facts. But if we resort to an indirect test and ask nature, who are the fittest? Those who are continually at war with each other, or those who support one another? We at once see that those animals which acquire habits of mutual aid are undoubtedly the fittest. They have more chances to survive, and they attain in their respective classes the highest development of intelligence and bodily organization. If the numberless facts which can be brought forward to support this view are taken into account, we may safely say that mutual aid is as much a law of animal life as a mutual struggle. That as a factor of evolution, it most probably has a far greater importance, inasmuch as it favors the development of such habits and characters as ensure the maintenance and further development of the species, together with the greatest amount of welfare and enjoyment of life for the individual, with the least waste of energy. Of the scientific followers of Darwin, the first, as far as I know, who understood the full purport of mutual aid as a law of nature and the chief factor of evolution, was a well-known Russian zoologist, the late dean of the St. Petersburg University, Professor Kessler. He developed his ideas in an address which he delivered in January 1880, a few months before his death at a Congress of Russian naturalists. But, like so many good things published in the Russian tongue only, that remarkable address remains almost entirely unknown. As a zoologist of old standing, he felt bound to protest against the abuse of term the struggle for existence, borrowed from zoology, or at least against overrating its importance. Zoology, he said, and those sciences which deal with man continually insist upon what they call the pitiless law of struggle for existence. But they forget the existence of another law, which may be described as the law of mutual aid, which law, at least for the animals, is far more essential than the former. He pointed out how the need of living progeny necessarily brings animals together, and, quote, the more the individuals keep together, the more they mutually support each other, and the more are the chances of the species for surviving, as well as for making further progress in its intellectual development, unquote. All classes of animals, he continued, and especially the higher ones, practice mutual aid. And he illustrated his idea by examples borrowed from the life of the burying beetles and the social life of birds and some mammalia. The examples were few, as might have been expected in a short opening address, but the chief points were clearly stated, and after mentioning that in the evolution of mankind, mutual aid played a still more prominent part, Professor Kessler concluded as follows. I obviously do not deny the struggle for existence, but I maintain that the progressive development of the animal kingdom, and especially of mankind, is favored much more by mutual support than by mutual struggle. All organic beings have two essential needs, that of nutrition and that of propagating the species. The former brings them to a struggle and to mutual extermination, while the needs of maintaining the species bring them to approach one another and to support one another. But I am inclined to think that in the evolution of the organic world, in the progressive modification of organic beings, mutual support among individuals plays a much more important part than a mutual struggle. The correctness of the above views struck most of the Russian zoologists present. Syevertsov, whose work is well known to ornithologists and geographers, support them and illustrated them by a few more examples. He mentioned some of the species of falcons which have, quote, an almost ideal organization for robbery, unquote, and nevertheless are in decay, while other species of falcons, which practice mutual help, do thrive. Quote, take on the other side a sociable bird, the duck, unquote, he said. It is poorly organized on the whole, but it practices mutual support, and it almost invades the earth, as may be judged from its numberless varieties and species. The readiness of the Russian zoologist to accept Kessler's view seems quite natural, because nearly all of them have had opportunities of studying the animal world in the wide uninhabited regions of northern Asia and East Russia, and it is impossible to study like regions without being brought to the same ideas. I recollect myself the impression produced upon me by the animal world of Siberia when I explored the Vitim regions in the company of so accomplished a zoologist as my friend Pulyakov was. We both were under the fresh impression of the origin of species, but we vainly looked for the keen competition between animals of the same species, which the reading of Darwin's work had prepared us to expect, even after taking into account the remarks of the third chapter, page 54. We saw plenty of adaptations for struggling, very often in common against the adverse circumstances of climate or against various enemies. And Polyakov wrote many a good page upon the mutual dependency of carnivores, ruminants, and rodents in their geographical distribution. We witnessed numbers of facts of mutual support, especially during the migrations of birds and ruminants. But even in the Amur and Ussuri regions, where animal life swarms in abundance, facts of real competition and struggle between higher animals of the same species came very seldom under my notice, though I eagerly searched for them. The same impression appears in the works of most Russian zoologists, and it probably explains why Kessler's ideas were so welcomed by the Russian Darwinists. Whilst like ideas are not in vogue amidst the followers of Darwin in Western Europe. The first thing which strikes us as soon as we begin studying the struggle for existence, under both its aspects, direct and metaphorical, is the abundance of facts of mutual aid, not only for rearing progeny, as recognized by most evolutionists, but also for the safety of the individual and for providing it with necessary food. With many large divisions of the animal kingdom, mutual aid is the rule. Mutual aid is met with even amidst the lowest animals, and we must be prepared to learn some day from the students of microscopical pond life facts of unconscious mutual support, even from the life of microorganisms. Of course, our knowledge of the life of the invertebrates, save the termites, the ants, and the bees, is extremely limited. And yet, even as regards the lower animals, we may glean a few facts of well-ascertained cooperation. The numberless associations of locusts, vanessae, cicindae, cicadae, and so on, are practically quite unexplored, but the very fact of their existence indicates that they must be composed on about the same principles as the temporary associations of ants or bees for purposes of migration. As to the beetles, we have quite well observed facts of mutual help amidst the burying beetles. They must have some decaying organic matter to lay their eggs in, and thus to provide their larvae with food, but that matter must not decay very rapidly, so they are wont to bury in the ground the corpses of all kinds of small animals, which they occasionally find in their rambles. As a rule, they live an isolated life, but when one of them has discovered the corpse of a mouse or of a bird, which it hardly could manage to bury itself, it calls 4, 6, or 10 other beetles to perform the operation with united efforts. If necessary, they transport the corpse to a suitable soft ground, and they bury it in a very considerate way, without quarreling as to which of them will enjoy the privilege of laying its eggs in the buried corpse. And when Gleditsch attached a dead bird to a cross made out of 2 sticks, or suspended a toad to a stick planted in the soil, the little beetles would in the same friendly way combine their intelligences to artifice of man. The same combination of efforts has been noticed among the dung beetles. Even among animals standing at a somewhat lower stage of organization, we may find like examples. Some land crabs of the West Indies and North America combine in large swarms in order to travel to the sea and to deposit therein their spawn. And each such migration implies concert, cooperation, and mutual support. As to the big Molucca crab, I was struck with the extent of mutual assistance which these clumsy animals are capable of bestowing upon a comrade in case of need. One of them had fallen upon its back in a corner of the tank, and its heavy saucepan-like carapace prevented it from returning to its natural position. The more so, as there was in the corner an iron bar which rendered the task still more difficult. Its comrades came to the rescue, and for 1 hour's time I watched how they endeavored to help their fellow prisoner. They came to at once, pushed their friend from beneath, and after strenuous efforts, succeeded in lifting it upright. But then the iron bar would prevent them from achieving the work of rescue, and the crab would again heavily fall upon its back. After many attempts, one of the helpers would go in the depth of the tank and bring 2 other crabs, which would begin with the fresh forces, the same pushing and lifting of their helpless comrade. We stayed in the aquarium for more than 2 hours, and when leaving, we again came to cast a glance upon the tank. The work of rescue still continued. Since I saw that, I cannot refuse credit to the observation quoted by Dr. Erasmus Darwin, namely that, quote, the common crab during the molting season stations as sentinel an unmolted or hard-shelled individual to prevent marine enemies from injuring molted individuals in their unprotected state, unquote. Facts illustrating mutual aid amidst the termites, the ants, and the bees are so well known to the general reader, especially through the works of Romanes L. Bichner and Sir John Lubbock, that I may limit my remarks to a very few hints. If we take an ant's nest, we not only see that every description of work rearing of progeny, foraging, building, rearing of aphids, and so on, is performed according to the principles of voluntary mutual aid. We must also recognize with Forel that the fundamental feature of the life of many species of ants is the fact and the obligation for every ant of sharing its food, already swallowed and partly digested, with every member of the community which may apply for it. 2 ants belonging to 2 different species or 2 hostile nests, when they occasionally meet together, will avoid each other. But 2 ants belonging to the same nest or to the same colony of nests will approach each other, exchange a few movements with the antenna, and if one of them is hungry or thirsty, and especially if the other has its crop full, it immediately asks for food. The individual thus requested never refuses. It sets apart its mandibles, takes a proper position, and regurgitates a drop of transparent fluid, which is licked up by the hungry ant. Regurgitating food for other ants is so prominent a feature in the life of ants, and it so constantly recurs, both for feeding hungry comrades and for feeding larvae, that Forel considers the digestive tube of the ants as consisting of 2 different parts, one of which, the posterior, is for the special use of the individual, and the other, the anterior part, is chiefly for the use of the community. If an ant which has its crop full has been selfish enough to refuse feeding a comrade, it will be treated as an enemy, or even worse. If the refusal has been made while its kinsfolk were fighting with some other species, then we fall back upon the greedy individual with a greater vehemence than even upon the enemy themselves. And if an ant has not refused to feed another ant belonging to an enemy species, it will be treated by the kinsfolk of the latter as a friend. All this is confirmed by most accurate observation and decisive experiments. I see you're asleep now, comrade. Don't worry, you will be safe here. Good night, comrade.
Gli anarchici van via e partono cantando con la speranza in cuore. E partono cantando con la speranza in cuore. Ed è per voi sfruttati, per voi lavoratori, che siamo ammanettati al par dei malfattori. Eppur la nostra idea è solo idea d'amore. Eppur la nostra idea è solo idea d'amore. Anonimi compagni, amici che restate, le verità sociali da forti propagate. E questa la vendetta che noi vi domandiamo. E questa è la vendetta che noi vi domandiamo. Ma tu che ci riscatti con una vil menzogna, Repubblica borghese, undi ne avrai vergogna. Ed oggi t'accusiamo in faccia l'avvenire. Ed oggi t'accusiamo in faccia l'avvenire. Scacciati senza tregua, andrem di terra in terra a predicar la pace ed a bandir la guerra. La pace tra gli oppressi, la guerra agli oppressori. La pace tra gli oppressi, la guerra agli oppressori. Elvezia è il tuo governo, schiavo d'altrui si rende, d'un popolo gagliardo le tradizioni offende e insulta la leggenda del tuo Guglielmo Tell. E insulta la leggenda del tuo Guglielmo Tell. Addio cari compagni, amici luganesi, addio bianche di neve, montagne di cinesi. I cavalieri erranti son trascinati al nord. I cavalieri erranti son trascinati